to make you think. But this time, I hope that my sermon challenges you. You can go to the next slide. The title of my sermon today is The Church versus Spurgeon and Wesley. Now, who was Charles Spurgeon? He was known in his time as the Prince of Preachers because he had an understanding of theology that no one in his time had. Now, I hope and I pray that everybody here knows who John Wesley is. Because, I mean, we're Methodist, we should know who the man is. Charles Spurgeon once said this: "It is not the job of the church to determine what the Bible teaches. It is the Bible that determines what the church must teach." And that is where we are at today as United Methodists. Now, in the past few weeks, I've heard a lot of rumblings. I've heard a lot of things going on. Things that the United Methodist Church is doing that goes completely against what the Bible teaches. Just to name a few, or to name one specifically, and I'm sorry that you guys don't know this, but the United Methodist Church is on the verge of splitting. What does that mean? It means that there's going to be two different groups of Wesleyans. There's going to be the Methodists, and then there's going to be the Wesleyan Covenants. What are they? Well, the United Methodists are going to be the people that want a certain thing. In other words, liberals, for lack of a better term. Then you're going to have the Wesleyan Covenant people, which are people like us in this church, Stan, myself, and many others, where we will not go against what the Bible teaches under any circumstance. Amen. Now, you can go to the next slide. I recently had to read part of one of the apocryphal books for my New Testament class. And it happened to come from the book of 1 Maccabee, which details the Maccabean revolt in Israelite history. Now, give me a moment while I read this. Then the king's officers who were enforcing the apostasy came to the city of Modin to make them offer sacrifice. But Matthias answered and said in a loud voice, "Even if all the nations under the rule of the king obey him, and even if they choose to go against the covenant of their fathers, I and my sons will follow the covenant of our fathers." And that is a paraphrase because I can't turn around. Basically, what Matthias was saying is that we will not let this apostasy stand. We will not allow these foreign people to come in here and change everything that our people stand for. We will fight this no matter what it takes. But the problem is, we cannot and we will not do this alone. You see, for far too long, the church as a whole, not just United Methodist. But the church as a whole has become complacent. People have gotten used to the idea of, oh, I come into church, I walk into the pew, I sit down, I stand when I'm told, I sit when I'm told, I sing when I'm told. But that's the extent of it. That's all I do. When was the last time that somebody stood up during church if they saw something wrong going on and they go, I don't like this. This is wrong. When was the last time that somebody stood up? When? And I know that somebody is probably looking at me right now, be it on Facebook or wherever, and they're probably thinking, this guy has lost his mind. That is not the case at all. Today, I'm not preaching as a Methodist. I am preaching as a believer in the gospel of Christ. You can go to the next slide. When he had finished speaking, a Jew came forward in the sight of all to offer sacrifice upon the altar in Modin, according to the king's command. When Matthias saw it, his heart burned with zeal and gave way to righteous anger. He ran and killed him upon the altar, and he even killed the king's guard. Paraphrase again. My point is that Matthias and his sons fought against this, not with their words, but with their actions. Now, I am not saying that every person in here has to, grab a sword and start, hacking away at everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the time for sitting on your hands, it's done. We've been sitting on our hands for far too long. And look where it's gotten us. The church is supposed to be a body of believers. How are we going to be a body if we're going to go ahead and separate? How? I mean, sure, you've got different denominations. You've got different points of view. Sure. But the point is that God intended the church to be together. He intended us to be a community of believers. You can go to the next slide. Now this is where I stand. Then Matthias cried out in the city with a loud voice, "Let everyone who is zealous for the law and supports the covenant come out with me." And he and his sons went to the hills and left all that they had in the city. Then those who were hungry for righteousness went down to the wilderness there, and they dwelt there, they, their sons, and their cattle, because evils pressed heavily upon them. I want people to fight for the gospel of Christ. We, as pastors and clergy and leaders, we can't do this without you guys. We can't. To me, the congregation has been left in the dark for far too long. How can the congregation make informed decisions if they don't know?